Hey everybody, welcome to InPsightRadio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall too everywhere. I hope your summer is coming along well, and I want to dive right in to part 3 of our ET series, our disclosure series. And of course, part 3 is, what do these ETs know that we don't about the Earth, about the projection of the human race? What do they know that we don't know? Now, there's a lot here. So there's a lot to unpack, and I got an hour to do it. So here we go. All right. So the way this is looking, of course, in our planet right now is, of course, we're ramping into the summer and we're starting in with our fires, and we've got all kinds of things that are happening globally, terrible storms, food shortages, water shortages, and as we get further into the summer, we're going to see water conservation efforts all over the place. So really, we have this opportunity to take a look at where we're at as a planet, right? As a species. And one of the things that I would tell you as a planet and as a species is this is not the first time that human beings have been up against challenges on a global scale. Now, of course, I'm talking about ecological challenges, and we're talking about climate crises and whatever. So we've got this planet full of almost 8 billion human beings, billions and billions of human beings. So many of us. And in the middle of all of that, we've got these off-world beings and off-world species who are really, for all intents and purposes, some of the longest running visitors to this planet that we have documented in all kinds of Egyptian history, Syrian history, Mayan history. It's all over the place. So these guys have come and gone, and they've seen humanity come and go multiple times. And of course, I visit with these off-worlders all the time about not only alternative energies, alternative propulsion devices, alternative timelines, yet they have some really interesting perspectives about where we're at right now as a species as compared to the last time we were really getting wiped out by climate issues, which of course was the last time the Earth superheated and then greatly cooled down. And that was what we call the Ice Age, 10 to 20,000 years ago. So they talk about how few humans were actually on the planet during the last, I'm not going to call it an extinction event, but the last challenging event for humanity. And there were not near the amount of us, not even in the billions yet at that point. I mean, there just weren't, because people were dying of disease. We're talking 20,000 years ago, and people were dying in childbirth, and there were no inoculations. So they've watched the human species evolve for a long time. And then, of course, we hit the sweet spot when the glaciers started receding, and life was just exploding everywhere on the surface of the Earth. So here we've got this incredible, amazing, really cycle of the planet cooling down and heating up. And now we're to an extreme heat up portion, which is way faster and way more intense, which they are informing me, angels are too, but we're talking about off-worlders. So I'm going to speak specifically about our cultures from Sirius AB and our cultures from the Pleiades and our Oturan folks, our Arcturians from Otur. And so we're going to talk about, when I say they, I am talking about a collective opinion from all of these galactic beings. And like I said, I just really want to make that clear. This is not an angel channeling episode. These are actual chats I've had with ETs, okay? So we're kind of in a different space with the ETs and their version of human history as opposed to angels. Angels will tell me what happened. They also tell me about how we can fix it, and they're all about temporal wellness and balance. These ETs, the off-world cousins, they'll just tell you like it is. So one of the things that they let me know is that in the point that where we're at on the planet regarding the heating of the planet, the superheating of the planet. We have, as humanity, have punched the gas pedal, as we all know, on global warming, right? I mean, yes, the planet does go through cycles of warming and cooling and all these things. We have really created a bizarre situation with our warming and cooling. So where we're at now with this spike of warming and this spike of weird weather and whatnot, they told me was a process that took dozens, if not 20, 30, 40, 50 years to ramp up on the Earth's natural cycle. Now, that's not much time, if you're a planet that lives for billions of years. Yet if you're human, what that means is we're going to escalate this to a point where it so superheats that it also super cools in our lifetime. And they were letting me know, especially the guys from Sirius AB gang, they are huge mathematicians. And they're that's what I would call them. They are the builders and the terraformers and whatnot. So in the middle of all this, they have this really intriguing way of projecting what's going to happen. And also the Oturan and the Pleiadians, they're beings who've been around such a long time that they are temporal in their nature. So they do tend to operate in the future and the past at the same time. That is a whole nother podcast, but they have all kinds of information as well. So when we're talking about the folks from Sirius Gang, they literally are telling me that we are going to escalate the heat to a point that our climate models cannot keep up with this, right? They're also telling me that we're going to escalate and bring in a cooling period much faster that is much more intense because of the heat period. So we might, our scientists might be saying, it's going to be 2029 or, whatever, the year 2299. I'm making this up. Before the Earth is covered in glaciers and blah. I think it's going to be faster than that. And I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer, yet I'm simply pointing out here that as we go forward with this climate challenge, we have off-world cousins that have watched our world go through this multiple times. They even told me that when the world was covered in snow and ice, that changed some of the electromagnetic ley lines, because you got to remember, gang, ice and snow are water, right? So you pile the entire global surface or the northern hemisphere surface or whatever with glaciers, that is going to change the conductivity of the geothermal and electromagnetic energy that's running through the crust of the Earth. So they've been here a time or two. They've had to make some trajectory adjustments because remember, our off-world cousins use the ley lines that they find here on our planet. They use those in ways that are really phenomenal. And they use them as navigating portions for where to land, where to find vortexes, where to hop through the Earth into other parts of the universe. So our off-world cousins know a lot about humanity and the places we've lived, this Earth, and how the Earth is going to progress, as well as a lot of our abilities and talents that we have been cut off from by the ones in the know, by church and society and just generations dying off, forgetting the mysticism of the human species, the general stuff. I'm not talking of, any Illuminati plot or anything, although there's a tiny bit of that, but I don't know, gang, QAnon and all that weirdness really burned me out on ever talking about global anything, just because it's gotten so stupid that whatever. I'm talking about the off-worlders making a nod toward their own observation of what the human species is capable of. And you might be thinking, okay, wait. You just told me, Danielle, that our ET cousins have watched the Earth freeze and come back multiple times. They've just reported that the place we're at in history with this warming cycle is so accelerated that we're going to have an opportunity to start to see the ice age in our lifetimes and the beginning of it, with the clouds and a blocked out sun and all the things. I mean, it's a ways off, yet heck, I plan on living for the next 30, 40 years. And so they're talking about there being not only it's superheating, but it's starting to super cool after the superheating. But also, our off-world cousins, gang, have watched us in ways that we are unaware of. Now, the oldest earth religion documented is Hinduism. And in the Hindu religion, we have a lot of differing gods and goddesses, as it were, which are really aspects of the one God, right, that are embodied, so they're easier to relate with. And one of the things that have been very prevalent with these off-worlders, especially when they're coming around and showing me different things, is that humanity used to be way, way more on top of our Bluetooth abilities, our Bluetooth potential. We used to be way, way, way more on top of, really, as it stood, technological, psychic things. And this is going to sound a little crazy, but just hang in there because they explained it to me and I got a chance to understand what they were talking about. They know, they've watched us before as way ancient people, 100,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago, really ancient people who were very keyed in and connected to the earth. And they watched us come in and come together, and not only come together in a way that is strong and powerful, yet come together in a way that is very psychic and Bluetoothy. And they were telling me about times on the earth where there was great famine and great drought, kind of like right now. And they were also sharing with me that they were sad for the human species because we're so busy fighting over stupid stuff like who's a Republican and who's a Democrat and, my God, who's a Seahawks fan? Who's a Green Bay Packers fan? Let's just all fight over stupid stuff. So they were sharing with me that they were really bummed out that we have really lost contact with some of our greatest mental superpowers. And when I say mental superpowers, I'm talking about psychic focused superpowers, where these beings can sit down and focus forward and teach us how to reconnect with the psychic superpowers that we all have. And apparently, according to the Oturan, what we used to do back in the day when there'd be a big drought is obviously we were praying to our gods or our god of the day. That was a thing. Yet they also talked about how humans recognized that they were an extension of the earth, okay? They have not cut them, they meaning those ancient people 100,000 years ago, did not cut themselves off or separate themselves from the earth. In fact, the folks from Sirius AB were telling me that as they used to come around and land and do everything they were going to do, and they were building structures down in South America where you see those megaliths that have the just crazy odd-shaped cut angles on these multi-ton stones that fit so tightly together you can't even slip a piece of paper between them. When the folks from Sirius were here helping us build and here helping us evolve, really teaching us about irrigation and all kinds of stuff, and a lot of that came from them, then at the same time, the people, the ancient peoples, the ancient humans, looked at the sky people, that's what they called them, and that's what the folks from Sirius AB told me they called them, was the sky people. They would look at the sky people and they knew they were visitors because our ancient ancestors did not consider themselves separate from the earth. Our ancient ancestors considered themselves part of the animal kingdom. Even though they were an intelligent animal, we still, especially Neanderthal man, especially the Neanderthals, really considered themselves to be part of the earth cycle. So especially the Neanderthals used to sit around in these big circles and connect with one another. They would let their energy fields just get huge in what we would call a meditation. My friend from Sirius AB, my special friend, my invisible friend from Sirius AB. Oh my God, that sounds terrible. Literally told me, they were all telling me that back in the day, the Neanderthals were so peaceful and so peacefully connected that when the folks from Sirius came in and did their little gene splicing trickery, they actually did that because they figured that our Neanderthal pals, they were so peaceful and psychic, and they would allow their energy fields to get huge and mix with each other and create one giant energy field. Honestly, they thought that maybe just helping out the gene pool there would assist them with upcoming natural disasters that were impending. Big volcanoes that were going to blow off, extinction level events, this kind of thing. They didn't calculate very well what would happen if the conquest gene got mixed in with a mammalian, especially ape-like being that's territorial, and I've talked about that a lot on this podcast. Yet what they noted, which I think is interesting to pass on here, is that they wanted to be part of this ancient human species. These Neanderthals, these hominins, they wanted to be part of them because they were mystified. And this is really important because this podcast is all about what do our off-world cousins know about us that we don't, okay? One of the things they know about us that we don't is that there is all of this capability that each one of us has to expand out our energy field, connect with other people's energy fields, to create such a field that it begins to work with nature, okay? An electromagnetic field made of beings that works with the earth, and the earth works with the sky. And the folks from Sirius thought that was a magnificent, incredible evolution of our species. These beings that came up in harmony with a planet that is alive, okay? Now, modern egoist archaeology, which of course came about in some of the more patriarchal eras of our old world, has painted the Neanderthal people as brutal brutes who are stupid and not nearly as smart or developed as their Cro-Magnon cousins who came in and killed them all off. Well, that's not true. It never was true. I never thought it was true. And recently in archaeology, they are now finding Neanderthal camps that show that there was medicine that they made and extensive medical care and extensive culture and food organization. These were not just cavemen wandering around like on the land of the lost, whacking a dinosaur on the head with a rock. It was not that. So it is super fascinating to witness and watch these wraparounds in the human evolution, because as we've gone on and gotten, quote, smarter, end quote, we've lost this incredible superhero ability or this consciousness to connect with one another. Now, I was asking my serious friends, that sounds like I'm saying my serious friends, not my jokey, funny friends, but my serious friends. I was asking my serious friends, my friends from Sirius, if they could kind of wade into these timelines, why they didn't see that maybe mixing their gene pool with mammal gene pool called hominins was not going to be the greatest idea in terms of conquest meets territorialism. And they reminded me that they really aren't the off-world race that does a lot of that steeping like a teabag in timelines. That's more the Oturan, that's definitely more the Pleiadians. And technically speaking, both the Pleiades and the Oturan are much, 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 much older societies by a couple million years, really. And even our folks in Sirius, that's still a several million year old society. So you got to figure out, where everybody's at in their timelines. But for the folks in Sirius, they really don't have any, they're very much in the now, Okay, they're the carpe diem off-worlders. Live in the now. What can we do to help people out? So one of the things that they reminded me of, and I'm going to remind you of, is that we have, even though we are now the Cro-Magnon version of the beings that were here at one time, we still in our DNA have this ability to expand our energy fields, connect with one another, connect with the earth, and literally, this is a physics thing, not a metaphysical thing. Because so much electromagnetic energy and mental energy and forms of energy, quite honestly, that these folks from Sirius showed me, and I really don't even know how to describe them. We don't have a way to detect that energy necessarily. It's like subspace energy if you're a Star Trek fan. This is subspace energy that really seats itself through the particle matter that we don't really interact with that much in our third dimension, which is dark matter, okay? So imagine this subspace particle that we agitate when we all come together as a species, and we'll call it meditating on one thing or connecting to one thing. And the reason the physics of this works is because when we come together as a species and we link all our brains up, and don't forget that the brain and the heart are the two electromagnetic organs in the body, we link the brain up and we turn it into this giant transmitter. It does all that energy hitting this third dimension. It does change the way that the upper atmosphere behaves. And I know this sounds so ridiculous, yet they showed me the physics on it. They showed me the science on it, and it completely makes sense. I mean, think about all the Bitcoin servers, okay? The Bitcoin servers create so much heat and eat so much energy that their heat field is obnoxious and can literally heat an entire house. That's actually a true story. If you have a couple of Bitcoin servers in your house and you vent them the right way in the wintertime, you can heat your entire house off of how hot those servers get. And gang, they're not really run on a regular computer like something I have or you have. They're a specific type of computing device that just crunches these algorithms. It crunches down these blockchain, heavy proof of work mathematical problems. So if we can consider that a couple of servers for Bitcoin can heat your entire house, can you imagine what billions of people focused on one thing can do? We're going to create a field that resonates way up high in the atmosphere. And when we have that field that resonates way up high in the atmosphere, then that changes air currents and it changes electromagnetic agitation. It changes the stratosphere. So our ancient, scooting back to the Neanderthals, okay? The folks from Sirius AB watched our entire world freeze over, and there were still a few Neanderthals bopping around, as well as the Cro-Magnon folk that were all fighting for resources over this overlapping in these time frames. And it was really the Neanderthals which tried to reach out in peace, okay? This is what I think is so fascinating. To their more intellectually driven Cro-Magnon cousins that were running about amongst them. Because remember, it's not like there was this sea of Neanderthals, then this sea of Cro-Magnon people who came in and killed them all off. They intermingled for a long time. And so the Cro-Magnon folks were a bit resistant, kind of haughty. According to the Sirius AB folks, their little gene splice project had a bit of an attitude problem because they had an intellect that the Cro-Magnon cousins didn't have. However, and this is what my Sirius AB folks were telling me, they were coming to the Cro-Magnon style gene splice projects of theirs as the sky people to try to teach them about, hey, here's how we irrigate. Here's how we build a pyramid. Here's how we do all these things. Well, pyramids came way later. Actually, the ancient ones, I'm being corrected here, the ancient ones that are still under the ocean that we don't find very often, those were around this time frame. So I guess they were doing pyramids back then. So anyway, what we see is our off-worlders trying to work with their hybrid kids. We'll just call it that. To work with the indigenous Neanderthal people to be able to learn this meditation or this hook it up with the earth Bluetooth capability, because the brains of the Cro-Magnon people were so much bigger and had so much more synaptic opportunity. So if you can kind of see through the lens of our Sirius AB folks here, it was a super good idea to help humanity that kind of went sideways with this whole, let's help you with your prefrontal cortex gene splicey thing. And unfortunately, there was an arrogance in the Cro-Magnon folk that just, they didn't want to learn from the Neanderthals. And in fact, they saw them as competitors for resources. Now, this is something that my Pleiadian pals told me, is that before we really had the big introduction of off-world DNA into the human species, I mean, there was a bit of a natural covetousness from the hominins that existed. And a lot of the hominins were territorial and, might have fought over immediate resources, like who has access to the one tiny pond in Africa that has 5 thimblefuls of water in it. There was that kind of competitiveness for immediate, really threatened resources. Yet my folks from the Pleiades let me know with no uncertain terms that before we had all this off-world genome in us, gang, for the most part, if there was a big natural disaster happening, or if there was a famine where people were starving, the ancient peoples would try to share. Now, at first I didn't believe my Pleiadian crew. I did not. I thought they were giving me some lip service here about, hey, if you all learn to share, you'll save the world. I really did. I mean, maybe that's jaded and terrible of me. However, what they were trying to communicate is that now, within us as modern human beings, we have this incredible ability and this massive bulbous brain, although it doesn't seem like that sometimes if you happen to accidentally see the news, which is something you can't ever unsee, by the way. But now we are a group of individuals who have great big giant brains, plus the ability within us to want to help others. It is innate in who we are, okay? So if we can kind of get a bit more of a grip on this, what these off-worlders have been telling me is that we have a tremendous ability to now, with almost 8 billion of us, connect on this planet and change the upper atmosphere density and cool the planet down, bring a little more rain. There's all kinds of advanced techniques we could even use to help eat some of that, CO2 out of the atmosphere that creates the greenhouse effect and all of this stuff. And of course, there's physical things we can stop doing, obviously, that will add to dialing back this climate change. Although we can't really stop the damage that we've put into play at this point, except to come together as this species that wants to help one another and also now has big bulbous brains, which our Sirius AB folks thought would be amazing to just give those like a nitrous bump on the engine so that if we were connecting as a species, we could do even more profound things. Well, guess what? It didn't quite go that way. So here we are fighting about resources. We're fighting about stupidity. We're fighting through ego. Ego. And we still view ourselves as this species that's really stupid and doesn't know anything. Oh, gang, according to our off-world pals, that's just not true. We have everything that we need to come together in groups, especially with our jacked up brains now, to come together in groups and meditate on literally the changes we'd like to see. Now, I asked my Palladian friends because they are excellent communicators when it comes to matters of the spirit. I've asked them, did the human species ever used to do something where they would all sit around and meditate and come together in a way that would bring them some really powerful changes in the earth? And they said yes. Yet it was our ancient peoples, 100, 200, 300,000 years ago when we were kind of unrecognizable to a degree with how we look now. Yet they were telling me that the ancient peoples, when they needed rain, would just get together and bring rain. And we have bits and pieces of that knowledge. We call it a rain dance or this or that. Yet it really was becoming, I asked them, well, how do you do it? And they said these beings would sit on the ground. We always think sitting Indian style on the ground, but just sit your butt on the ground. I don't care how. Put your root chakra on the ground. Put your tailbone on the ground. And allow the sky to come through the body and right through your tailbone and into the ground. So it comes through the crown, down the back, into the earth. Then the ancient people would let the earth come up through the tailbone, up through the spine, up to the sky. So if you think about the north and south poles of the earth and how they suck in magnetism through the north pole, spit it out through the south pole, just reverse that process when you're bringing the earth energy up, all right? Then they told me that the ancient peoples, they'd hold hands, they'd touch one another, sometimes they just touch the ground next to each other. They would recognize that they could funnel this energy, especially through the ground or through their hands, to one another. So they would make this giant circle, sometimes hundreds of people large, and just get very quiet and begin to call in the clouds, because they did know that clouds had rain in them. They weren't sure exactly how it all worked, but they knew that if big puffy things came in the sky, then little droplets would fall out of the puffy things. So they would beckon the clouds to them. Like they knew that somewhere on the planet, they were smart enough to look in the sky and see that clouds blew over the top of them. They were smart enough to put together that there was wind, and wind would move a leaf, and therefore wind was moving the puffy, fluffy things, whatever the hell they were made out of up there. And they did recognize what mist was. I mean, there was fog. So these aren't people who had no clue. Okay. I really think that the Victorian intellectualism movement set us back much further than it brought us forward in our reasoning abilities, because everything had to become this science data point. Everything had to be explained and peer reviewed. And the fact was, our ancient peoples, according to our off-world cousins who have watched many iterations of human beings come and go, we had a really good head on our shoulders about observation before we had all of this off-world noodling. And believe me, our Sirius AB friends have a lot of remorse a lot of times for coming in and trying to help out the gene pool here. They really, honest to God, are the most altruistic species. And apparently, just as a sidebar, they did this against recommendation from the folks from the Pleiades, and even against some recommendation from the angelic realm that's like, really, we don't think that's going to play out well. Yet you got to remember, the earth is a free will zone. All of God's creatures, great and small, are free will creatures, including our off-world cousins that were made by that same being or entity or consciousness or whatever. So pretty much, they kind of came down here and did what they wanted, and then pretty much got some galactic pressure to back off because now it's getting too stupid, and we just need to let the few hybrids do what they're going to do and just let's let nature take its course. Well, nature kind of hit an imbalance point at that point. So why do I bring this up so heavily? Well, it's because I want you to know what I learned. And I learned that human beings have so much incredible capability in them to literally come together and Bluetooth and change the atmosphere. Our indigenous nature genetically as beings on this planet is in a giant catastrophic climate pinch to help one another. I wanted you to know that we came from a group of evolved Neanderthal beings and all these other beings, which technically speaking, genetically, I know, all my geneticist friends out there are saying, you do know that the Neanderthal genome is different from Cro-Magnon. Yes, I know that. I know that. I'm just saying, though, that many of these beings procreated together. So there is still some of that Neanderthal original, and there were other hominins, gang, that weren't Neanderthals, but I'm just using them as an example, okay, that were indigenous and original, that weren't noodled with. So inside of you, I'm telling you this because inside of you exists incredible original superpowers that work straight with this earth like a battery pack. Now, it's our 1950s dad, our prefrontal cortex, that's going to want to argue all these points with you. Yet that was a later addition in our evolution, a much, 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 much later addition. So if we can just pat our little forehead and just tell your prefrontal cortex you love it, and just sink back, sit on your tailbone, sit on the ground, not in a chair, take your shoes off. Actually, the folks from Sirius AB showed me that when these beings, when these ancient peoples sat in circles to bring rain in, or sometimes to bring game in because they couldn't find anything to hunt, they would sit down on their tailbone and they would put their palms on the ground and they put their feet flat on the ground. You know, like when you're a little kid and you sit on the grass and put your arms back and your feet are extended and whatever. They had all their chakras touching the ground. And then they would come together and bring this unified cause together. And that would hit the quantum field, and the giant spinning electromagnet called the earth would amplify that need. And sure enough, here something would come. Now think about how we've sort of bastardized this communion of consciousness. You know, we still have people who get together in a church, in a group, and pray. And as those beings get together in a group and pray, that's great. Yet everybody seems to be praying about their own stuff. Dear God, help my finances. Dear God, help my spouse. Dear God, help my sick mom. Dear God, help my hamster, whatever. And God becomes the mail order Santa to deliver all your things that you want. And once in a while, you know, we have mass prayer for something. Yet what's happening is that, let's just take the Catholic religion as a great example. Sometimes Pope Francis will go out on his little veranda, his Vatican balcony, and his little hat. And he'll go out there and there will be thousands and thousands and thousands of devout Catholics that are going to pray the rosary with the Pope, or they are going to pray as the Pope speaks and says a prayer for the world or whatever he's praying for. Then all of the people listening bow their heads and come into energy union with the Pope's words. Okay? Now, that doesn't suck, and that does affect. That really, it doesn't. And all prayer is good prayer, so pray however you want. It does affect the ether sphere. Yet if all of those folks, if Pope Francis went a little more Jesus here and did a Sermon on the Mount and had bare feet and was sitting on his butt and had his hands back and literally told everybody else to sit down and do the same thing and put all their chakras on the ground. And as he started to pray, everybody put that energy directly right into the earth, not through their shoes, which has rubber soles, which then hits the concrete, which then becomes very difficult to get to the earth. I mean, it can through our crown chakra. It can etherically. Yet, I mean, the earth is an electromagnet, gang. Contact in magnetism matters. It matters. If you want inflammation to come out of your body, you need to take your shoes off and go barefooting in the backyard for about half an hour and do that for a week. And that can really reduce your body's inflammation by almost 40%. Because the electromagnetism of the earth discharges all of the funkiness in your body at that point. Okay? Are you following me? So if the Pope were to do that with all those thousands of people who adhere to the Pope's prayer, then that prayer is going to go into that electromagnet. And what does an electromagnet do when it spins? For those of you that are not total science nerds, that creates energy. If you want, a spinning electromagnet generates an electrical field. That's, those dams they build in gorgeous canyons and choke out those poor canyons. And then you've got these huge turbines in the dams. You know what's in the turbine? An electromagnet wrapped in copper. And as the water rushes past those turbines, it turns them in this unbelievably fast manner. And as they are turning, it creates electricity. And that electricity flies right up to the power, and it goes out to Las Vegas and Los Angeles and all these places, from Hoover Dam or out to Billings, Montana and Gillette, Wyoming, all the way out of Bighorn Canyon. I mean, the earth casts off energy as it spins. So if we're putting the energy of bring the clouds, cool the environment, cool people's heads down, let's send everybody peace, then that is this energy that goes right into the crust of the earth, and the earth spins it and barfs it back out into the upper atmospheres through the poles, okay? And that atmosphere reacts. Isn't that interesting? So, I mean, I'm sitting here listening to this as my Sirius AB friends are telling me all about this, and I'm thinking to myself, who knows about this? I mean, somebody's got to know about this, right, you guys? On the earth, I'm saying to them. And the Pleiadian friends pop up and they say, oh no, all of India knows about it. Anybody who's, especially the Chinese Buddhism, which meditates and creates and connects with one another, they know all about it. There's so many cultures in the world that do this on a regular basis. There are monks that are up in the Andes, and all they do all day long is connect with each other. And they're sitting on their tailbone, and they are meditating on allowing the world to be a better place. That's all they do, because they understand how this works. They eat their bowl of rice, and they sit down, and they get into this groove with each other. They don't even talk. They don't need to talk. And they expand those energy fields, and they change the atmosphere. So what can we do, people? What can we all individually do, considering that the science project called gene splicing that our Sirius AB folks came here to do kind of went a little weird? How can we come together and start to right this weird issue? Well, I would recommend that if you feel brave enough to do this, and I recommend we all try to be brave because our timelines are getting shorter and the world is getting weirder, and the white line's getting longer and the saddle's getting cold. Sing along. I'm much too young to feel this damn old. Okay, had to get that out of my system. As we're watching the earth go the direction that it's going, grab 10 of your friends. I mean, if you have to start with 3, that's great. And get your 3 friends, go to a park, go to your backyard, sit on the grass, get your butt in your hands and your bare feet down on the ground. Maybe you touch pinkies or fingers with people. It's going to feel weird because we, especially coming out of COVID, have not been in each other's personal space for a minute. And have a common cause that you would like to send to the earth to spin and send out to the atmosphere to then generate a response and bring you that which you put into the quantum field. Okay? And make it something that's not about yourself. How about rain? Here's a good one. We're going to have so much problem with rain coming in and more problem with fires. So how about drawing to you clouds? Not oppressive clouds, like we don't need to reenact Noah. This doesn't need to be an entire Cecil B. DeMille production here. But bring rain. Think about drawing in cool air. Think about cooling our glaciers. And really, it was important that I include this. Our Sirius AB folks did tell me that when our ancient peoples were having these meditations, they focused their energies on one thing. And our big monkey brains now, we get down 100 million rabbit holes. They focus their energies on one thing. So if it's you and 3 friends or 5 friends or 10 friends would be excellent in a backyard, focus on one thing. Focus on, say, the Western United States, and focus on amassing clouds over there that would be cool. Now, the energy that's going to be created to make those clouds, that's going to come out, that's going to go into the ocean. And it's not like you're going to pull a cloud from Idaho over your Montana petition. Okay, it's not like that. You're going to put it in that you need the clouds in this space. Our ancient peoples lived for the day. So they were drawing the clouds right above their heads, right above their crops, right above their rivers, whatever they had. So you and your friends can envision a larger aspect, like say the Western United States, and just envision clouds being pulled and send to the earth, hey, we need clouds on the western part of the country. Now, as all of you are sitting in this quiet meditation circle, allow your energy fields to, usually we pack about 3 feet of energy around us as human beings. Our ancient peoples would have 20, 30 feet of energy around them. They were feeling their universe like crazy. The Aboriginal peoples have hundreds of miles of energy field around each person, okay, if they want it. So we're capable of spreading our energy all over the entire earth from one point. And I know people in Reiki who do this. It's pretty astounding. So what I would tell you is get with your friends, pick one simple thing to draw, let's say clouds to the Western U.S., okay? And as that energy goes into the earth is going to take it, spin it, recycle it, and throw it out into the ether sphere. And the most effective use for that energy is going to be over the ocean, where the clouds form in the first place. And those clouds, as the need comes in, those clouds begin to redirect their direction. And this has to do with jet stream, and it has to do with the upper ionosphere. And really, the more often you do this, it's quite amazing what a direct reaction it has. And if you want to think about it as praying, that's fine. It's just that if we look at how separated we've become from involving the earth in our meditation or prayer, right? We stand with our tennis shoes with rubber soles in our church that's got a synthetic floor over a dugout basement and a concrete foundation. We are nowhere close to the earth when we're standing in a church. Now, there are some ancient churches which were built with the stone that was found in the ground, and that is their foundation. They're just flat. And they're built with stone, and that stone is just, there's just raw ground underneath of it. That's a little different. Yet those are hard to come by in America. So we still, in our beings, gang, we still have this awareness that if we get together in groups and have a like consciousness in that group, which we now call praying in a group, that something good can come of it. That's something that we're aware of. And that comes from our ancient people's DNA within all of us, the ancient tribal DNA within every single human being that walks the planet. When we're dealing with our Native American cultures, our first peoples in America, generationally, I've had an opportunity, I have many Indigenous friends, and they have told me on multiple occasions They laugh about the fact that they've told me that, here I'm this angel channeler who talks to aliens and blah. And white people think that's just amazing. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Our indigenous cultures do this all the time. They don't think it's weird if a spirit appears. They don't think it's weird that there are angels. They know that the star people came and brought them great knowledge. They are living still, even though colonization did its very best to try to strip these beautiful nations of their indigenous heritage and ways. It is biological in the folks that I know. They've told me it's in my blood, it's in my bones, it's in my cells, it's in my hair. The ability to connect with the earth and the sky, the north, south, east, west, the up and down. So we can learn a lot about this concept of being with the ground. I mean, even when our indigenous peoples prayed, they would dance barefoot for hours and hours at a sun dance. They would just dance and dance and dance and dance. And they would sing and let their feet be the conduit of all this group energy. And they were all chanting for one thing on the ground. So our ET cousins have been watching this evolution of humanity. And they do have some concerns. They've got concerns that we don't remember who we are. They have concerns that we don't remember what it is to send messages telepathically. They have massive concerns that we're living so much in our monkey brain, that we are not working together in our highest capacity. Now, the angels have big freakouts about that too in their own angelly way. Yet the angels also are a little more aligned with that God energy, which is like nature. It's kind of like, well, if they make it through this, then I guess it was meant to be. And if not, we'll just roll the dice and have something else crawl out of the primordial soup another time. Angels don't really look at the survival of the human species as this, oh my God, you're our biggest priority. We're no more a priority for them than the trees and the rocks and the grass and the multiverses that we affect here. We have equal priority with every living thing, according to the angelic realm. However, our off-world folks, they're not angels. And especially our Sirius AB folks, they're probably, of all of the off-world gang, they're probably the most like us-ish. In part, that's because we have some of their DNA. There is a little Oturan DNA running around the earth. And that's a lot of where we find this high resonation thought. There's some really cool aspects to that. But really, the Oturan came in just as a balance and seeded a few people with their particular brand of DNA. And it was somewhat of a balance issue at that point because the Sirius folks, as they do, they're a little overly enthusiastic. So they maybe dropped a little too much genome here and there. And, I've never asked them how they did it. I don't want to know. I do not want to know how that happened. That is, ew. That's like thinking about somebody going in and having sex with a Pomeranian. Like, I just can't even. My brain shuts down. I black out. And my subconscious just starts playing black and white reruns of I Love Lucy. Like, I just can't do it. So I've never actually asked them how they did it. I'm sure they'd tell me, and I just don't want to know. So there you go. However, I do feel that there was a reason, because now we're going towards more of a angel-y universe thing. There's a reason that the Cro-Magnon folk really spread all over the place and did what they were going to do, and this is who we are now. Because we literally have in our heads now, due to some evolution and some gene splicing and other things, and better nutrition and all kinds of other things, a much greater brain mass with far more synapses and brain folds to be able to be an electromagnetic and telepathic semiconductor. We have a lot more to work with now. And we also have a whole lot of people now. And here's kind of a fun little wraparound before we're out of time. Yes, it's best, according to my off-world cousins and our off-world cousins who have watched us do this time and time again, and They've watched how the earth has really, for a lack of a better way to put it, missed us as people. It misses our interaction with it. It misses our participation with it energetically. All we do is terraform over the top of it. We pour concrete and we build things and we fly through the air and we're so busy going up in space. And our earth is alive. And our earth misses our participation. That's why it loves it when we swim in the ocean. When we swim in that ocean, the belly of the earth touches our bellies and the hands of the earth touches our hands. And we splash and laugh and play. And the earth is so happy to have us. Or in the rivers or anything else, any water. Yet, imagine what we could do if we were conscious about our ability to connect, especially with the earth and the sky and our angels and the quantum field, and touch pinkies with one another to make these giant changes we'd like to see and put these visions out and allow our earth to just be this electromagnet of hope and spin all of these thoughts into the quantum field. Now, sometimes we can't always be around people, yet coordinated meditations are going on all over the planet. So it's not necessary for you to have to be there to expand your energy circle to someone else sitting next to you in order to push that to the Earth's crust. That's not necessary. We can join a global meditation that's going on at the same time where it's all time zone corrected, right? And everybody is thinking on this one thing. We're going to move clouds over the western half of the United States. This is a possible issue. You sit down. If you're going to do a meditation that's connected with others globally at a coordinated time, that's excellent. I really hope that the folks that are organizing these meditations encourage people to the very best of their ability to have some part of their bare body, feet, hands, something, touching the actual ground when they do this. Because all of that unified thought, maybe the thought bubble doesn't connect in the same way, yet the earth will connect all the unified energies because like attracts like in the spiritual universe. And the group meditations that have happened, there are documented cases of people enacting group meditations all over the world. And like they'll meditate for peace in the Middle East. And then 10 days later, a miraculous treaty is signed. And of course, then things fall apart again. That's just kind of the cycle. However, it's weird how the cause and effect happens. And it's not just like the peace treaty was going to happen. Like it comes out of nowhere. These are people who were really fighting and all of a sudden they're not. So we can still connect, gang. We can still connect even if we're not touching one another, even if we're not in direct proximity with one another, we can still connect. So our off-worlders know a lot about the mechanics of the earth. They did tell me in the last couple of minutes we have that if we choose not to get it together, and if we choose not to figure out how to work with one another, not only in how do we reduce our carbon footprint, but also in how to come together in this way to work with the earth and connect with the sky and send help where it needs to be sent. And that could be anything. It could be peace. It could be clouds. You pick. Dealer's choice. That we're really going to have a hard time getting through the next 20 years. Right now you go on the news and there's still people out there who think the former president was ripped off out of an election and they are still thinking that that former president is going to come into power. We are so detached from not only the earth, but just pretty much, man, we've got a country of people building realities and living within them. Whatever those realities are, it's pretty intense. So let's get back to basics. Let's listen to our off-world cousins, especially our Sirius AB folks who feel a little bit bad for how sideways this all went with the gene splicing thing. But, you try to teach somebody to bake a pizza so they can feed their village, and all they do is eat the pepperoni off the top, and then you're just stuck with a grody crust. So that's kind of where we're at here. I think we can turn this around, though. So make a commitment to yourself to have a few friends over. Maybe if you live in a safe place that's not going to be on fire, to have a fire pit. Or, just go to a beach. I love meditating in sand. Oh, it's right by all that water, which is such a semiconductor. Go to church, do your things, pray. You can pray singularly, yet just understand the earth is here for you. Spirit is the earth. God is the earth. God is in the earth. We are parts of that energy. We are parts of that electromagnetic mechanism. So understand that these beings who have flown here, our extraterrestrial cousins, have seen us come and seen us go, and they'd like to see us stay. So let's do what we can to bring our highest resonation to this plane of existence while we still have the luxury of sitting outside without frying in 145-degree weather. Okay, go get your shorts dirty. Go get your butts dirty. Go get your feet and hands dirty. Let's go send some good energy into this earth. And I will see you next podcast.